Gaming NBS episode 244 being recorded Sunday, May 26th, 2019. Welcome to Gaming NBS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Glad everybody's here. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing fantastic, Brett. How are you doing?
Not bad. Long weekend.
Yeah.
And I got some pretty decent gaming on it. My buddy Nick wrapped up his D&D game on Friday. Saturday, I ran my Avalon Pathfinder game. That went really, really well. I killed Lenny's character, which felt good. That's always good when that happens.
It's always good.
Yeah. Take one of your best friends, just grind his character beneath your heel. That's always fun. So I got that done.
Yeah. Well, check that one off.
Exactly. And AJ has got one of his buddies coming over tomorrow for part of the day, and he was asking me, he goes, "Hey Dad, I want to either go to his house or I'm gonna have him come here." I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you want to do? If you go over, what do you plan to do or whatever?" He's like, "Well, if we come here, I'm hoping you'll run D&D or something." I'm like, "I can do that." So I'll be running D&D tomorrow, so that'll be fun.
Excellent.
Did you do any gaming this weekend?
No gaming this weekend.
Tisk.
I know. It's all right. I got plenty in front of me. I'm trying to balance all this crap. God damn it.
All right, so let's do announcements real quick. We still doing Awesome Dice?
May is the deadline. So this would be the last kind of hoorah before next week we'll draw a name. So until next week.
Okay, so next week we'll draw the name and then that's it.
I think so. I think I'll have to check with Brandon.
Okay.
And so what we're talking about is if you enter your email into our website at gamingnbs.com, you'll be entered to win a set of dice from awesomedice.com. If you do not win a set of dice from Awesome Dice, you can buy something from them. You go to awesomedice.com, place an order, use gamingbs at checkout, and you will save. You have to place an order for $10 or more, and then you'll save 15% off your order using that promo code.
So our winner in April was James Sweetland. Did he get a hold of you?
He has not.
Damn it, James.
I will email him.
Good.
Because he's probably behind in episodes like everybody else is.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Of course, GameholeCon.com and Evercon.org. Evercon's my small convention, about 1,000, 1,200 people up in Wausau, Wisconsin. That'll be in January. We've got our events registration open now because it takes a while for folks to get things in. So I want to make sure that's cooking. Gamehole Con, of course, is happening in sort of our Halloween this year. So, excuse me, Sean and I will be there. I've got 3 different Avalon game sets. Sean, have you got anything put in yet for Gamehole?
No. I don't have a single one yet.
You should totally do that because we said we'd run more games this year.
Fine.
You should totally do that.
I will. Don't worry.
Okay, good.
I will.
And because it's Halloween, I'm thinking I've got to do a Cthulhu-y type something. Something's got to get run.
Yeah.
That has some horror bent to it. My Avalon stuff tends to be kind of darky, gritty horror type of piece from fantasy, but I want to do something a little more Cthulhu-esque. So I think I know a guy who might have a Cthulhu-esque type of thing I could pull out and do something with.
Maybe.
So we'll see.
We'll see
if we can pull that together.
We have had people ask, like, "Hey, are you guys still doing like the Gaming NBS banner thing for Gamehole Con?" The answer is yes.
Yes, if you want to run a game under our banner, it'd be great if you talk to Sean and I. Say, "Hey, I'd like to do this." We could say, "Oh, really cool. What are you running?" And then we can help pimp your game for you. And then you say, "Hey, I've submitted the game. It's under the Gaming NBS banner." And there you go, off to the races. So more people that do it, the cooler it is.
Eric B. Gator, a.k.a. Where Gator, was asking, and so
hell yeah,
if you would be so kind as to list your game under Gaming NBS. There's a group. I think there's a group field. You just put Gaming NBS. That would be greatly appreciated. We've been known to give a little token of appreciation.
Yes.
We haven't decided what that's going to be, but I think everybody's been happy with what we've supplied so far.
Yeah, it's always been fun. And the other cool part is that it's we only had we had one time when a game master wasn't able to make it. It canceled last minute. We quick backfilled it. Edwin Nagy was great, stepped in to help us out. But otherwise, our GMs have been top notch. They've shown up, and I'd like to think it's because they're running our banner. They want to do us proud, but they're just fucking awesome game masters. So they show up, they run a really good game, and it's always been a lot of fun. So come on down. Hope to see you at Gamehole Con this Halloween. All right, Sean. Good grief. Should we, what do you want to do? Should we skip it? Let's move.
Let's go to the main topic.
Let's go to the main topic.
All right.
We got big stuff to talk about. Big stuff.
All right. So, first responder by day and gamer. He's the author of Carnival of the Damned, a module for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and designer and developer of the upcoming RPG Dark Trails, a game which pays homage to the popular Weird West genre that can be played alone or use the rules found in Dungeon Crawl Classics, RPG by Goodman Games. We want to welcome David Baity to the show.
Woo! David Baity!
David, this is where you say hi. You can unmute yourself, Dave. Did we lose him?
No, I'm here.
Oh, good. Thank God.
No, you said you were muting me, dude. I've just been listening to you guys. And I'm going to tell you, you guys are like milk and honey. Your voices are just nice.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You've been drunk with both of us before, dude. You know it's not that good.
Yeah, let's not let that get out. At least I'm not drunk on your podcast, which is a first, I think. I think I destroyed the guys at Glowburn with the talks of Winnie the Pooh and the Pantsless Bear and Quest for Honeypot. So I'm not going to do that to you guys.
Well, that's good because we'd
There's the power of editing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And it's good to talk to you guys again. It's always cool to... Normally, we don't talk a whole lot unless we're hanging out at cons. So.
Oh, this is cool, man.
Yeah, we need to get together more often. Have the family over, have drinks.
So, Dave, where are you stationed out of?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, South Carolina. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I knew it was South Carolina. I could not remember exactly where.
You know where those clowns stand on the side of the road and like scare people with bottles of Faygo and balloons? That's where I live.
That's where you live? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Was that the crazy clown thing going on?
Yeah, it was going around. I think a couple of years ago. That's me, man. I mean, it wasn't me, but
wait, no, we heard it here. That was Dave Baity.
I did do the Carnival of the Damned, so it kind of makes me wonder if there's not like a clown cult around here.
So did you? Oh, I'm going to do a total aside. Did you? I have not seen the new version of it, but there's the second chapter of it.
I haven't seen. Is it out yet?
No, I saw a trailer for it. It looks fucking creepy as hell.
Well, I love the first one. I thought it was really awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
have
the
not
first
seen that one.
No, wait a minute. That's the I love the first remake.
Yes.
The only clown I love is Flip Flory. So Flip, if you're listening, you're the only one that doesn't creep me out, buddy.
Flory.
Flip Flory, man. It's up in New England, up in the New Hampshire area.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Baity. So what we're talking about here.
Why do we got this guy on our show anyway?
We got him on the show for a couple of reasons. One, we love Dave, so that's cool. Two, Dave's got a Kickstarter for Dark Trails RPG. We'll have links in the show notes and all that stuff.
Sweet.
And we'll bug Dave to give us a little rundown. And the other piece is that one of the genres that Sean had hit on periodically, but not very often, and I don't think it gets a lot of press or a lot of coverage. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody other than Mr. Baity who's running something in the American Wild West, that time period, that post-Civil War, gunslingers and all that type of thing.
Hey, you know what they got in the Wild West?
What's that?
They got a little of this. You know what else they got in the Wild West, right?
Oh, they got trains. Of course.
Man. Tell you what, the class just went down like 2 points on this podcast.
The IQ of our listeners just dropped. So, Dave, let's do this first. So, Dark Trails RPG, give us why is this cool? What's the mechanical engine behind it? Give us a quick little blurb on this.
Well, I think the coolest thing about Dark Trails is probably the classes. I think people really they find the classes addictive, and there's obviously an abundance. I think both of you have played, right? Sean, haven't you played? I know.
I have played.
Okay.
I did play. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there are 11 11 classes that you can play, and I know that sounds like a lot, but it's they're not. I don't think they're too bad. They're not. I don't think they're any more crunchy than the DCC classes that you would find. So you have some really interesting classes. They're all kind of based on the supernatural and some things that happen in the backstory of the game. So I don't know where they came from, but I came up with these, and then after the classes were developed, I started really trying to work on some mechanics to add on top of the DCC games that would give it more of kind of a Western feel, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you took the Dungeon Crawl Classics Goodman Games engine and said, "Hey, I'm gonna."
Yes.
Okay.
When this thing started to kind of heat up a little bit, and I think I took it to Gary Con in 2016, so that was maybe 4 or 5 months after we started running it here at home. After that weekend, I was like, this is probably something that, could potentially develop into a product at some point. So I asked Joseph, and he's always been just super nice to me. I don't know if he feels sorry for me or what, but he's always been awesome. And I asked him, I was like, I don't want to do a book, I guess, that adds to the book count that you have to play this game. Would it be okay if I bring some of the essential rules over for Dark Trails and add some things on top of it? And
so you're looking at a standalone versus here I gotta go buy the DCC book
exactly,
and this ad. Okay,
I think if I'm not mistaken, like Hubris, I think that goes on top of DCC, but you still have to have the DCC rules to play it. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think that's what's going on with Hubris, and I think there are a few other books that follow that same recipe. So. His response was, I don't know why he said this. He said, "You're grandfathered in, Baity, so run with it." So, basically what you've got is a standalone game. And I'm really proud of that, because I know there are some folks who've backed the Kickstarter who probably don't know what DCC is. That's kind of cool in a way, because it may actually bring them into the fold, on some of the other Goodman Games products.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just want Dark Trails, and that's all you need to have, and that's pretty cool, I think, coming from a smaller publisher that's riding on the saddle of a bigger system.
Makes sense. Oh, that's very cool, dude.
Did that answer your question? I feel like
no,
I
it totally
off track.
did. It
Okay.
absolutely did. So let me think about this. So we're looking at right now. We'll probably we have, as of today, the 26th of May. You got 20 days left to go. You have 480 backers. You wanted 12 grand, and you're already at 32.7. So I think you're doing okay, brother. I think you got this.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think any of the stretch goals. I think all the stretch goals that were broken, other people message me, because I tend to just try and maybe look once a day, Like when it first launched, I literally just turned off the computer and went and ran a few errands, and thinking that when I got home I would look at it, and my phone just started blowing up. I had to take it out of my pocket and put it on silence because people were looking weird at me. But people were just saying, "Hey, you just broke this," or "You just funded," and it was great. I mean, it was really awesome to know. But I think there were a lot of people that were they were pretty damn excited about it, and that's always
well. You
cool.
funded in less than 3 hours, man. I mean, it's you put a lot of work and heart into it, and Sean's played it, I've played it at cons, and the other people I've met who say, "Have you played this game yet?" Yes, I have. I've never met anybody who's played it and said, and not been, "Have you played this? I can't wait for this."
Well, there was one guy who didn't like it, but we buried him behind the arena.
Yeah, I helped you out with that
Yeah,
one.
you did.
I
We
think
were
that,
supposed
I
to
think
bring that. You edit this out. No, but the reaction to it has been, I mean, it's to the point now, the last 2 or 3 cons, people said, "When's Dark Trails coming out?" They walk up to me, and it's very humbling, in a way, and it's also, it makes you feel good because, like you said, I've worked on this for over 3 years, so it's finally getting to that point where I'm ready to birth this baby I've been carrying around for 3 years. It's nice to know that people are waiting for it.
So I'll tell you what, let's lead into this other piece here then. So what made you think, you know what I want to do? I want to do kind of a mythos mixed with the Wild West. What drew you to Six Guns and posses and, all that stuff that goes into the John Wayne, the Clint Eastwood John? What makes you pick that genre versus, I mean, anything else? Because there's plenty of other places and times to do this, but what drove you there?
I think I know why.
Why?
I think Dave wants to be. I think he wants to be the Duke.
The Duke?
Oh, yeah, could be.
I think he does.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know, man.
I think so, man. John Wayne. You wanted to be John Wayne.
Actually, probably not, but it's
Okay.
okay that you think that. I'm more of an Eastwood fan, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So have you been like were you like a Cowboys kid your whole life? Is that
No,
or
I hated the whole Cowboys and Indians thing. The kids would play when they were little. It was with me. It was always like Batman or a superhero. So we were talking a little before the show. This was a late thing for me. I mean, I never cared for westerns as a child.
okay?
It just, I don't know, it just happened probably, I don't know, 10 years or so ago. I started really digging, some of the better movies, and that got me more into the weird side of it. Sorry about that. But I think that with me, it's always about what pulls me into a game is the world and the options that you have. So the first thing I look at when I flip through a game is, are there any interesting classes or races that you don't typically see? When you look at a lot of the Weird West or even Western role playing games, there's I don't know. I think there was room to evolve and add something to that genre that wasn't currently being done. If that makes sense. Um, Deadlands. Go ahead.
Like give us an example, Dave. What wasn't being done? Like, what did you see as a gap?
Well, for one, you've got to take the whole DCC community. I mean, you guys know it's Gonzo. I mean, it's weird. I mean, if
No,
it,
people who love the DCC game. I mean, I enjoy the hell out of it. I like playing it. I've run it a number of times.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. You meet people like, oh, you like this too, and there's like you're immediately family. It has a really good
yeah,
community.
it's
Just
like
all
a
around.
cult. So it really is. I mean, we're like a tribe or something. So once you're in, you're in. But I think that playing a DCC game and then playing, say, a 5e game or one of the older editions, there's something about it that's different. And I'm not saying that it's better than any other system, but there's a feel. I think there's a general feel that people walk away from that table. It's just kind of over the top crazy, and if weird fantasy, if that could be applied to, I think, an RPG, I think DCC would really qualify for that. So I think when getting back to your question, I wanted to do something for the Weird West or to use the Weird West, but to inject that feeling that you get from a DCC game. I mean, take the weird and like inject it with steroids and just kind of go crazy, which I think the classes in the game, I think they're all just kind of over the top different. I don't think there may be a few of those classes where, you're like, okay, well, I've seen that in this game, but there are a handful of classes that you can play that I really don't think you're going to find in any other Weird West game. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, it does. It's interesting because I look at the West. It's the Wild West genre itself. I know of Boot Hill, of course. There's
Yeah.
Aces and Eights. There's Deadlands.
Have either of you played Boot Hill?
I have not. Shit. No, strike that. I played Boot Hill like back in the '80s once.
See, I'd love to play that game now, but back when I was young, I was always about Gamble World or D&D. I had no interest in being a cowboy, and doing some pew-pew, but so that's cool that you've played it. Sean, have you played?
I have not played any Western RPG.
Okay.
Wild
cool.
West. No. Except yours, Dave. I
Yes.
think. Honestly. I think Dark Trails might have been the first and only.
I think there's something really cool about the space, right? Because it has, when I look at like D&D, like the exploratory aspects of it and so forth, and things are crazy and wild and bits of lawlessness on the frontier. I mean, that was the West. I mean, after the Civil War, this crazy thing occurs. It's all done, and there's political problems. There's intrigue. People are, your first real rail barons and all these big conglomerate type of thing, things that will grow into monopolies and stuff later on. It all starts up there. There's carpetbagging, all that stuff
Yeah.
that happens in this growing nation as it's pressing westward and encountering all these different things. It's really cool. It feels very hex crawl in a way. When you look at some
Yeah,
of
I
the old
agree.
school stuff, it's got a lot of that to it. And I think there's also a lot of mythology in the Wild West.
So what is it that makes a good Wild West game, in your opinion? Dave, start.
A good Wild West or a Weird West?
Well,
Or you want to put them together?
Well, pick.
So if you're is your question, Sean, like if it's in the West, like during that time period, 6 guns, sheriffs, all that stuff, there's certain aspects that need to be there for it to sing? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I think you got to define a Wild West game. And then if you say Weird West, you can top that. Sometimes people will say steampunk kind of falls into that space a little bit too. But
I've heard that too. They're wrong, but that's nice that they think so.
Well, okay. So, but because there's Weird West and there's Wild West. And you could play Aces and Eights. You could play Boot Hill. Like, why? I guess when I play D&D, it's like I'm going to create Fightor, and I'm going to go in Fightor land and beat and kill things and adventure and explore. Where the Wild West, I know there's a little bit of exploration still that's available, but
I see where you're going with that.
You know, like what makes it a place where people like role-playing gamers are going to want to go
come back
and get into? Yeah.
What is it that's going to draw them in? I think that's where maybe Dark Trails kind of fits with what you're saying, because I get that. It's like if you're just playing a Wild West game or, even a Weird West game, what's the driving story or what's the backstory that's going to keep players at the table, week after week wanting to continue a campaign? That's kind of where I think the backstory helps a lot, because I did take some elements from Lovecraft and kind of, I don't know. I haven't played a lot of Call of Cthulhu. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but the few sessions that I've played, it seemed like it was maybe 80% investigation with 20% combat. And I don't know how much you guys, I know you've both probably played Call of Cthulhu. It may be way off. I don't know. I guess it depends on who's running it, but
yeah, it does. I mean, if you play a Delta Green style Call of Cthulhu game, there can be a lot more gun shooting and fighting and so on.
I probably need to be playing Delta Green then, because I can only take, I need to roll dice at least once an hour.
Or Pulp Cthulhu.
Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah, but if you played like an old school kind of that classic Cthulhu, where I'm going to go to the library, check my library use, come through that. Okay, now let's put these clues together. Let's go talk to the librarian. Let's go back over to here.
All the books in Dark Trails have holes shot through them. No, I'm just kidding. But I think the way it works is the whole theme of this. The backstory is there was a time where the elder gods actually ruled over man on Earth and enslaved them, and at some point, these celestials, benevolent beings, appeared and actually helped overthrow them. And in the process, it brought the end of the first age of magic to the world, so there's no more magic. And they erased all history of the war, so no one would know about these elder gods anymore.
Gotcha.
So years and years later, several generations of man, only one elder god escaped. Nyarlathotep actually escaped. He knew what was coming. And he took a very powerful relic, the Necronomicon, with him, that contains relics and rites that could actually one day maybe set these guys free. Because what happens during the war, the battle that ensued, the elder gods were imprisoned and put into an eternal slumber. So, case closed, we're done, celestials leave, they erase all, evidence of what happened, and the end of magic basically comes. So, fast forward all these years, anytime there is a major war or something, all that strife and the death that it causes, that's the energy that the Necronomicon feeds off on that would enable those rites to awaken and free the elder gods.
Okay.
Come into play. So, through generations of man, Nyarlathotep actually comes from the Dreamlands, places the book in someone's hands, and they try and enact the rites, the rituals. And it fails every time, with the exception of the Civil War. So when this happens, Nyarlathotep appears, and he gives the Necronomicon to a capable cabal of cultists, and they take off in the Mexican desert. And for 7 days and nights, they try and basically successfully perform the rites. One of them goes off. Well, actually, both of them do to a degree, but the first one's a complete success, and the elder gods are actually awakened from this slumber. So they're awake, and they realize they're actually entombed. They're imprisoned in like a dimensional exile. So the second ritual almost succeeds. The gates to free them begin to open, but at the last moment, good guys roll in, shoot up all the cultists. The book itself is a living relic, so the pages rip and scatter across the winds. And that kind of sets up a backstory. So you're basically racing against cultists trying to reclaim some of the pages of this book, along with everything else. The gates, while they were opened, a lot of bad things poured out into the world. The Elder Gods didn't come out, but a lot of bad stuff did. So one of the bad effects was all of the corpses, the soldiers' casualties, basically rose. So you've got a lot of undead walking around, which kind of factors into an alternate history of why the Civil War came to an end.
Got it.
So suddenly you've got 600 plus thousand casualties of war that are rising up, trying to go nom nom on the people that are still alive. And so, hey, we better start working together and figure something out. So with that being said, I think that you've got the typical elements that you would have in a Wild West. I mean, like if you could go after bank robbers or cattle rustlers, you could do all that. But there is a very strong element of a spaghetti western where you're also, going after the bad guys with tentacles sprouting out of their ears.
No, I like that. I think the interesting piece is that I look at, how do I just say this? So sometimes back in the day, I would look at like Boot Hill or whatever and say, so it's just like rustling cattle and shooting, shooting bandits type of thing. Is that all there is to it? I actually remember people telling me the same thing back when I was running Vampire or Wraith or whatever. Oh, so you just run around and suck people's blood. That's all you do, And I think what I'm hearing from you is like, look, there's this rich history, and the backstory gives me, what's the prime thing I'm doing in this game? What's the core activity, right?
Yeah.
And that backstory has enough information. And like, look, the main thing is dealing with this thing that was landed on the earth, right? So boom, you got to deal with this fucking deal. Figure out what you're going to do, stop it, save people, fix it, do something. And, but it's being done then with that backdrop. So you have the historical limitations of, look, this is what you don't have fully automatic weapons. You've got Gatling guns. You've got, limited science aspects, limited, you don't have decent hospitals and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I like that. So
it's not a good time to be, if you think about it. I mean, it's like you said, it's truly a Wild West. I mean, people are heading out west to try and stake their manifest destiny. They're trying to stake their claim, and some of them are coming from the war, having bad experiences with that and just trying to start over with a family. So you've got that, but you've also got people who are listening and their ears are open to the whispers of the Elder Gods that are now awake. So there are just as many people that are trying to release these Elder Gods to let them back into our world. So you've got that element as well. You've got all the things that all the tropes you'd have with a Wild West, but you've also got, there's a strong element for playability in that you're constantly trying to, beat back the night, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because it has almost that Delta Green aspect. But
I've never played Delta Green. I've always wanted to play Delta Green, but I've never had the chance.
Okay. So. But it's like, you've got, I mean, the Wild West was very dangerous. People would get shot, and they're like, what'd you shoot him for? Well, he was cheating at cards. Well,
he was snoring.
Yeah, but people get shot like, well, it was a clean kill because, he called me a liar. What? You hear those stories. And the other thing that I think is cool with what you've got cooking is people always talk about reskinning stories and taking an adventure, changing it, tweaking it, whatever. And there is so much in the Wild West space between Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, and everything else that's out there. You could go and grab Unforgiven, which is a badass movie, and read a Weird West game or any RPG. Take that and say, okay, how do I tweak this? How do I stand it on its head? How do I do this so that there's actually cultists involved? It's darker and nastier than that. That plot, that through line, all that stuff is still there. You just add cultists and something with tentacles, and you got it.
Exactly. And, to be honest with you, I've taken this game up through the years, and I don't know how many folks are DCC players that are listening, but I've taken this game like on a Sunday or something when we're supposed to meet, and I for whatever reason I haven't had time to come up with something, homebrew. I'll grab a DCC adventure that I've ran a few times and sit there for about an hour and just read through it and just reskin it with like an Old West. The last time I did that was with an adventure called The Jeweler that dealt in Stardust. I think that's the name of it, and it was beautiful, man. I mean, it was flawless, but here it is. I turned this adventure into a Weird West adventure with like an hour's worth of work.
So, with the DCC chassis behind it, as you said, it's known for being kind of gonzo. It's got a great community and all that, but the system itself has got the dice chain. Sean and I did a long time back a 2-episode part with Jen Brinkman, which was great to just kind of explain, if you will, the whole DCC approach and the mechanics and all that stuff. So, were you drawn to that component of it because of the? It's an action-packed type of game system, is how I see it. And from what you're telling me is that it takes the cool part about, I guess to me anyway, a good Western. There's these bouts of inactivity, but then the gunfights, it's just it's action.
Yeah.
And I see that when I have a DCC game. So that feels like a good fit to me, I guess. Is that kind of what drew you there too?
It is, and I think that, I love a lot of the mechanics in DCC. It's definitely not a perfect system, but I don't know if there is one. So, you're going to have, I guess, fans and you're going to have your haters, but I think it's great. And I think the dice chains, it's fun to play with the dice chain. But yeah, I wanted that feel. I wanted that same feel in a Weird West game. So when you sit down at the table with me, you're going to be rolling dice within 30 minutes. And there's going to be some lulls, and there's going to be some times where, you do need to do some investigating or, some interactions with NPCs. But yeah, it's spaghetti Western. That's kind of how I look at it,
Got it. With Westerns, I don't know. I just haven't.
It hadn't caught you?
It hadn't caught me.
I get that.
But it's not that I would not see why I wouldn't play it. Right? Because there's gunfights. There's, I think, more role-playing opportunities probably in a Wild West game sometimes than probably a, dare I say,
D&D game?
Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
I think you have to have some component of it, or else you can't have the shootout at the OK Corral without, I guess you shoot everybody up, but there's some
A little backstory.
There is, yeah, man. You can't have.
The Boot Hill game was well known, at least it was in my circles, as like, it will fucking murder you. You get shot, you die. Right? And that, honestly, and that actually drives people away from Call of Cthulhu in general, because at least the version of Call of Cthulhu I've always played, you get shot, you fucking die. You're a normal human in a regular world, and you get shot in the arm. You don't just walk out of the hospital. Well, I take a healing potion and I leave.
Yeah.
Now, you've got magic and stuff, but with the critical hit charts and everything else in DCC, shit is still very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I've played with you, so I know guns are really dangerous, right? If you shoot somebody, shit fucking dies. It's tough.
The fun thing is like giving everybody guns and then stepping back and watching them get into melee and start firing through melee, which in DCC, that's a very bad thing. There are more character on character deaths than there are me killing people. I
think last time we played, Bruce Cunnington, shot 3 other people in the group at least. He shot more people. He shot more people than he ever shot bad guys.
He did. You gotta love Bruce. So.
Yeah, you give an English guy a couple 6-shooters, man.
It
and
just
it's
goes
all
crazy.
Over.
Yeah.
Start shooting Yankees. That's what happens.
But yeah, you're right. And I think it was. And guns are deadly in Dark Trails too. Don't get me wrong. You can definitely do some damage, but I think that that's kind of how it needs to be. You're not going to die from one shot. If you're a first or second level character, then obviously that's I think you're kind of taking that chance. But I think we did a pretty good job with guns in Dark Trails. I think you guys will dig it. You may or may not remember, Brett, but we used the gun deck, which is kind of cool.
Yep. That is cool. Yep. No, I like it. So let me think about this. So a Wild West game, Dave, when you looked at this, you said, hey, you got into Westerns when you got older and said, hey, I like the DCC chassis. I want to add some weirdness to it. Is there, most people I know who are playing or talk about, and again, I don't know anybody who's doing it. I hear, you're a friend of mine. I know you. Hey, he's running the thing. I know this. But I talk to other people online who, I don't necessarily think are friends because they just happen to be in a chat board with them type of thing. But everybody I know online or I read who's playing a version of a Wild West game is always a Weird West game. There's magic, there's Deadlands or something. And I don't know if that is just a response from how do I add something to this historical event to make it more fantastic or something, or if it's, I don't know what the draw to that is, or guess why people want to go for that. But I don't know anybody who's ever played Aces and Eights. I can read a review or something, but I do not know anybody who's like, oh yeah, I play Aces and Eights as a campaign, and this is what we do this all the time, and I'm now sheriff of this town. I don't know anybody who's doing that. It feels almost like a Sid Meier's Civilization game versus an RPG. It
seems like I could be wrong because, like you, I've never played in just a standard Wild West game, but I think, and Sean hit up, what do you do, after the first 2 or 3 sessions? What's the pull or the draw to get you to stay in a game where it's, I guess kind of based off the real world with no fantasy elements or weird elements thrown in? I think you almost have to keep it from getting boring.
You look at a movie, I was just watching The Revenant, which is not Wild West, right?
Still a good movie, though.
That's a very good movie. There's pieces of mysticism within it, right?
Yeah.
Where there's strangeness and there's, if you take the frontier days from there, and even again, like you look at the Wild West, you talk about the Earps, you talk about the Jimbuis and the Bridgers and these guys from these other times, and now I'm losing my mind. Doc Hollidays and all these different names that show up between the frontier time, like Flintlock period, and then the Wild West. There's all of this mythology about these men and women who did crazy stuff. I remember one. I can't remember what it was. A Ripley's Believe It or Not TV show, Believe It or Not, from back in the 80s, where you've got who the hell was it? It was anyway, the guy doing the show is talking about this person.
Jack Palance.
Jack Palance, thank you.
Yeah.
Palance is talking, and it turns out this one badass roughed up cowboy was actually a woman, and she had just dressed as a man her whole life in this town. Nobody knew it until she died. You're like, wow, that's kind of an interesting story. That timeline, or what was accepted, what isn't. And you hear all these great mythology pieces behind it. So I think that this penchant we have for taking the Weird West and throwing it in there's some weird shit in the West already.
Yeah.
The mythology behind it. You watch like True Grit or something, like, oh, that's the man who's been shot 52 times, but he's still standing, or he can shoot a fly in the ass at 50 paces without even looking. That's mythological level stuff that's happening.
And there's so much of that to just mine, it's like you said. You can pop a movie in, you can pick up a book. It doesn't even have to be a Weird West movie, and if you watch it, like when you talk about Unforgiven, I think his character's name was William Money, but that guy in and of himself could almost be a demon.
Oh yeah, he doesn't die.
Exactly.
He gets the shit stomped out of him, and he comes back and kills everybody. Just won't quit.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. There's just a ton of elements that I think make, without the Weird West, I think just going through like a typical Wild West movie or something, you can find elements in just about all of those that have a little bit of mysticism to them or borderline supernatural,
Now, I didn't prep you for this ahead of time, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So when we start talking about that time and place, there's racial tension out there, right? Because it's right after the Civil War.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that was about, kids, you should have paid more attention in school. But when you get out there, there's a lot of racial tension in all over the place.
Yeah.
People hate the Irish. They don't like African Americans. They don't like Chinese. They don't like Native Americans. There's a lot of that hate that's out, and it permeates a lot of that stuff. So I played with you, and looking at the classes and the bits and pieces you've shown me, I don't see. Obviously, you're not a dick, so your game isn't focusing on like, hey, I'm going to do this, right?
Yeah.
So when you're building something, you're looking at that time frame. Even if you took the fact that say Dark Trails isn't going to be published or whatever, when you're running a game like that in a historical time frame,
how do you dodge those?
How do you dodge it? Because it's not even dodge. It's like, I don't. Do I even want to deal with that? Yeah. It's not even fun, you know.
It's something that has been in the back of my mind from point A to point B, because I know that, you know, it's a sensitive matter, and it should be. I totally get that. And, you know, the more research I did on, you know, Native Americans and how things were back in the day with immigrants and, you know, all of the above, it's a sad time. It really is, you know. So how do you handle that in a game? And it's a tricky subject, you know. Since the Kickstarter has begun, I've had a few people who've wanted Native American classes, you know, and I don't think they understand. But, you know, in the back of your mind, you've got to think, well, I don't want to, you know, I want to be respectful. I don't want to offend people, you know, especially a Native American, because I throw a Native American class in that doesn't really have a whole lot of thought behind it, you know.
Yeah, because if you do that incorrectly, it becomes
it's disrespectful. I mean,
yeah, exactly. You can very easily glom onto the worst of all stereotypes.
Yeah.
Or even any stereotype that whitewashes or just paints over something. And
or race appropriation. I don't want to be accused of that, you know, either. So my thoughts were this. Up to the Civil War, everything is pretty accurate that happens historically. But when the Civil War it comes to an end, it comes to an end because this much more, I don't know, darker thing is threatening to come into the world, and it's already reared its face by there's a period of time where these rituals are performed. It's called the 7 days of night, and it's like there's a total eclipse for 7 days and all kinds of astral phenomena, but things are twisting and turning, and the parts of the earth are warping to the taint of the elder gods that, you know, are basically in the process of being freed. So when you've got 600,000 corpses rising up all of a sudden that you got to deal with it, in a way, I think there's still that tension between, you know, there's still the racial divide there, but in a way it was my way of trying to bring everybody together, even if there's still grudges, if there's still going to be issues. I thought that would be a good way to kind of, I don't know, bring I mean, I could have stuck with I guess history as it is, and a lot of the Weird West out there do that, but some of them go a different direction, and I wanted to do that. So to kind of get to where I think you're going with that, I really want anything dealing with, you know, Native Americans, immigrants, you know, African Americans. I want it to be based on a foundation of respect, and from there, I want, you know, the fantasy elements or the gonzo elements to stem from that foundation, if that makes sense. So,
no, it does. I mean, because,
and we've talked about this. You know, I've asked you. You know, we've had talks about it. I think at GaryCon this past year, and I think the right way to do it is to find people who are involved in our community that, you know, I think who are very knowledgeable, and I'd love to find a Native American writer to you know, to get with and say, hey man, let's do this. Show me what you've got, and let's make something really cool for this game. You know, based on history. Take the Apaches and really do them upright. You know, their beliefs, their traditions, their ceremonies. You know, things that are historically accurate, and then really bring them out and make it something cool, you know, add a little bit of a twist and just, you know, try and come up with something that's different, but everybody looks at it and says, yeah, that's pretty cool. I dig that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I like what you said there, Dave. So thank you very much. I think the other thing that's cool is that, you know, look at what you're doing, you know, even Deadlands from, you know, the Savage Worlds crew and stuff. There is a different problem. There's more to deal with than that. Right. You're talking about Elder Gods, Nyarlathotep, horrible, nasty things happening. The dead are walking. We got bigger fish to fry than worrying about whether I'm I don't happen to like you because just the way you look or whatever it is. I want to be, yeah, there's more. The core activity of your game is not dealing with that stuff, but it's dealing with a larger problem. And I like what you're saying there, and it makes sense to me. So I think that was a good approach. That's a good way to go.
Well, I hope, I don't know, I hope talking about it on the show, and this is the first time I've really, talked publicly about it on the podcast. I've done a few in the last month, but I hope that people, understand me, who I am as a person, and know that what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to bridge a gap and do it in such a way to where everybody is happy, to the point to where, I don't want anybody walking away saying, man, that guy's an asshole. I can't believe he did that.
Yeah, well, once they meet you. No, I'm kidding.
So hopefully what's in the book and what comes down the pipes in the future will be some products that, I'm not going to say it's going to set a new standard or it's going to be something that you haven't seen before, but I don't think it's going to be something that you find, I don't know, I think it'll fit, if that makes sense.
No, it does. That works. I like that. So, Dave, let me ask you this one. Is there anything from like a Wild West perspective or anything that if someone says, hey, I want to run a game in the West, how much do I need to, is there a movie I should watch? Do I need to know all this history? How would you, other than like, here, buy my book, right? Where do you start? Because it's such a rich historical time frame. And like I said, there's myth and rumor and craziness around it. If nothing else, where would I start, or where did you start even?
Sorry, I'm getting choked up for some reason. I started with Deadlands, but in all honesty, when I was running Deadlands, I don't know a lot about I didn't read through the whole game. I didn't read through the whole history. I just took the rules and adapted it to what I thought would be kind of a cool Weird West. I've always dug the mythos, Lovecraft, so I was like, I want to do this. I want to put these elements together in a Western environment and see if people dig it. So once the home group, when we played, they were like, hey man, this is really cool. I dig these classes. That was when I think it kind of sparked me to reach out. So I started watching movies. There's a very large list of Weird West movies that are really good. Some of them not so good, but most of them not so good. But yeah, there are some pretty nice gems there. And I think that there's actually, I believe on Facebook, I can't remember, there's a Weird West group. If you find me on Facebook, you can certainly find it that way. And there's even talks of an Appendix W podcast possibly being started.
Just about the Weird West.
Yeah. And but there's a list that someone has posted. It may have been Bob Brinkman, I'm not sure, with just tons of movies that would make great, brain food for whatever you're doing. But movies, it's hard for me to really commit to a large novel at this point in time, because if I'm not writing, I feel like I should be. So
no, I know.
You probably know.
Yeah, I know that feel, bro. No.
So I've been reading a lot of compilations of short stories, which is perfect because there's plenty of. Just go on Amazon Prime and type in Weird West, and it will there's a ton of stuff. So short stories, comics, Jonah Hex. I've got the last run of Jonah Hex. I love those books, and hell, even music, man. I mean, I've listened to music while I write. I don't know if you do or not, but
absolutely.
I've got a huge Dark Trails playlist on Spotify. So I think everybody pulls inspiration from their own medium that they prefer. Maybe some people blow through a book, like it's nothing. I know Bob Brinkman, I think he can read like 5 books in the time it takes me to read one.
No, he's a machine. He and I were talking at Gary Con. I'm like, dude, how do you, holy crap.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a robot of some sort. But,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, after I played with you and I watched Hateful Eight on Netflix.
Good movie.
I went through Hateful Eight. I'm like, this is Dark Trails game. This is Dark Trails game. This is a fucking Dark Trails. I got to do this game. This is going to be fun. Because it's got all the right pieces. So I think
that Dark Trails is a skeleton. And there's so many things that you could add to that skeleton as the meat and muscle. And it could be a movie, it could be a book. I mean, it could be a comic. There's so many things that you can do with that genre. I think you just need a good system that you like, that's fun, And I think that the classes from Dark Trails add a fun element to the game as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody who picks up Dark Trails, or, hell, it could be Deadlands, even if you didn't want to use the backstory of Deadlands, you've got a set of rules that you really dig. Once you find that, I think inspiration's everywhere. It just depends upon, pick your poison, I guess.
Was there, talking about the mechanics now, was there any part of the DCC rule set that when you're pulling this together as a standalone, they said, you know what, there's no flow jitsin. You know what, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to do something. Did you leave anything out?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you get if people who play DCC, you will very easily recognize the parts that were included in Dark Trails. There's some elements of Dark Trails that I felt that it was better to create some new mechanics aside from just basic guns. I mean, that was a given, but alignment was one of the things that in DCC, it kind of follows the standard RPGs. You've got your chaotic, lawful, neutral alignments.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like that fit the Weird West. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. Because if you think about people in the West, take William Money. We already talked about him. He was a badass, a murderer. And then he hooked up with a fine woman and had a family, and she straightened him out. She turned him into a shitty farmer, but he was trying.
Yep.
And then the wife dies, and he's failing miserably at trying to take care of his kids. And then Morgan Freeman's character rides up and says, "Hey, got a job." So he goes from bad to good, or try kind of good, and then in the end, he's a son of a bitch. So I wanted an alignment system that could kind of follow that,
So you got some flexibility. You can kind of flow in and out depending on where you're at.
Yeah, it's designed in such a way to where there are three paths. Everybody starts out walking the line. So consider that maybe like a neutral kind of alignment.
Okay.
But then through play, you're obviously you're a hero in this game. So you're either going to do really good things, or there may be times when you do really bad things. So if you do some really good things, and when I say good things, I mean like truly putting yourself in harm's way for your friends, or rescuing those 22 orphans from that burning church, putting yourself. When you do things like that, you actually kind of go towards the path of what I call the righteous.
Got it.
Whereas if you let that church burn down, or maybe you set it on fire,
whoops,
you drift down towards the path of the damned. So the thing is trying to create an alignment system that actually maybe affects play a little bit enough to where it becomes an element of story, but not too much to where you have to, I guess, police alignments, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say that ties into, if you're good there, I was going to say that actually ties into like the sanity component. I know you haven't played you haven't played Call of Cthulhu, but you know what the sanity mechanism is.
I know that I think the sanity mechanic may be a little more severe. I think I played Call of Cthulhu the last time was probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I don't know what edition that was. But
okay.
It seemed like it factored a pretty good deal. I think you have sanity points, and once you lose your sanity points, you go insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with DCC, I didn't want that to be a major factor in the game. I wanted it to factor. So the way we work around that is there's a new stat in Dark Trails that's not in DCC. It's called grit. And grit is a combination. It's a derivative of your personality, which is kind of like wisdom for people who don't play DCC, and your stamina. So it's like your physical and mental ability to handle stress that comes from seeing things that probably shouldn't exist in your world.
Gotcha.
During the course of an adventure, let's say you're playing a module that may last 3 sessions. During those 3 sessions, if you fail grit checks, which are basically fear checks, but if you fail those checks, one of the penalties of that is you lose grit points. So through the course of that one adventure, you start to cave to stress to the point to where if you lose all of your grit points, you actually kind of have a minor meltdown. That's when you might develop a phobia or a derangement. It's kind of like you've cracked and you're on the edge. But the thing is, when you finish the adventure, you kind of have some downtime. So I don't think this happens in Call of Cthulhu, but I could be wrong. But in Dark Trails, when you finish this last big adventure, you have some downtime. So you kind of, you you stabilize mentally. So unless you went to 0 grit, you're going to go right back up to that total for the next adventure, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Excuse me. So it's not, it's not as quickly replenished as like hit points in a D&D thing or whatever. But it's going to have an impact for the story. Right?
Yeah. Now,
if you start to lose it, it's going to mess you up or cause problems or whatever, but it doesn't destroy the character.
Exactly. The average grit's probably going to be 12 or maybe 13. So you figure if you do happen to reach that point to where you go to 0, you will charge back up at the end of the adventure, but your total is permanently reduced by 1. So there is a slow descent. When you lose all of your grit permanently, you become, insane basically. But I don't think it's as harsh as maybe some of the Call of Cthulhu sanity checks might be. But then again, I'm not sure.
So one of the things I was going to kind of talk to you about a little bit was when we talk alternate history and we're adding a layer of, fantasy on top of this, the horror aspect. I know you did Carnival of the Damned, and I know that horror is a thing for you, right?
Oh yeah, I love it.
So I started thinking about, before I got on the mics with you, like different shows, different movies. I have not yet seen it, but Bone Tomahawk.
Oh, you haven't seen that yet?
I haven't seen it yet. That's on my list. I got to watch that. And it's, when I watch that, and even some of the old Clint Eastwood movies, it's not horror, but it can be, if you put yourself in as the character, you're getting your ass stomped.
Yeah.
And there's levels of terror and horror, and even if you look at some of the war, right? I mean, not just some of the war, but the Civil War is terrifying, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's horror there. And I think there's enough other components because of the mythology. I think horror really lends itself well to the thing you're going to fight is bad. Mm-hmm. So when your characters are going up against, whatever the big bad is, or its servants or cultists or whatever, it doesn't feel to me like there'd be a lot of morally ambiguous, well, maybe the guy with the tentacles coming out of his eyeballs is really a nice dude. We just got to give him a break. I think it's like, that motherfucker, shoot him,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, because when I played with you, the shit we ran into at the end, I'm like, burn it all. We're all like that dead, burn everything. There was no moral ambiguity on this horror. It was like, that's got to go.
Was that the as above, so below when you guys go under the earth?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's one adventure that will never make it to print because it's got some pretty twisted stuff at the end. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
But you run horror in anything that's modern or real world, and it's, to me anyway, at least the way I'm understanding what you're laying out there, it gives you a clear bad guy or bad people, bad things. These things have to go.
Yes.
There's, if you side with them in some way, y'all are twisted, warped, or corrupted. That's not good. Where, like in a D&D fantasy game, like, well, I'm kind of chaotic evil, but I still hang out with the paladin a little bit. We have little arguments. That is not going to happen. It's like it has that Call of Cthulhu vibe in a way. Like when that dude in the party, he or she gets, loses sanity, or they start casting the wrong spells. You go, I'm sorry, but Susan's got to go. That's it.
Yeah,
the group like, nope, sorry, bang. So it feels part of the core activity, all the different stuff in the game, the horror aspects of it, if nothing else from a unifying perspective, as we talked about before, is really strong because you have to band together to defeat this thing. Because you're one dude, your carpetbagger, he's not going to do that. By himself, can't do it. Needs help.
No, you're right. I think that's you nailed it on the head there, I think.
I think what would be interesting is that any folks that listen to this one, if like, oh, I know this game. Honestly, if you got a list of some kick-ass Westerns, or if you've played them and you've had good fun with them, or what you have enjoyed and so forth, I'd be really interested to hear about it, because it's a genre that just doesn't seem to take off well on its own. And I think what Dave's doing here by adding this horror component to it is just really cool. I think it's a good way to, like I said, add a really kick-ass core activity. I keep saying that, but the thing you're going to do and you're going to deal with, so that you've got stuff to do instead of just, it sounds corny, but just rustling cattle or shooting bandits, Well,
that's what you do in your downtime, You're trying to live a normal life and build something new, or whatever it is you were doing before all this happens, and then you've got these supernatural elements that rear their ugly head every now and then, and it's time to strap on the guns and take care of business.
So, Dave, is there any piece of either Wild West Gaming, the Weird West, or your game that we didn't talk about that you're hoping to throw out at us here?
No, I think we've covered a lot of it. I think that if you're a DCC fan and you dig westerns, I think there's something in this book. My goal was just real simple. You might hate 5 of the chapters in the book, but if you come away with something that you dig, that I'm going to be happy with that. Obviously, I want you to love the book, but there's a lot of material in here that will help you. You don't necessarily have to subscribe to my background and my backstory, and considering that it's been left kind of light on backstory and things, dealing with that, because you may not, your version of the Weird West may have absolutely nothing to do with what I've got in the book. So I wanted to give you tools that you could use to, that if you did want to take it this route, there's something in the book. There's town generators. There's weird weather generators. There's all kinds of weird tables and stuff that you can use to, take your own skeleton of the Weird West and put muscle on it, however you see fit.
So let me check here. I'm going over to the Kickstarter page, going to do a little refresh. Yeah, you just got another backer. You're at 857. This shit just won't stop.
Well, the sad thing is I'm like 2 days. I think I told you guys, I'm trying to get through a birthday weekend, and at 50 years old, they get harder. And a weekend of gaming, Pete Spann, actually, he lives pretty close by, so he came down because he's going to do some stuff with Dark Trails, and I wanted to run him through it, and so I'm very exhausted. So it's cool that people are still backing it when there's no, stretch goals or add-ons listed. That's hopefully going to change tonight, though, so we'll see. By the time this show airs, there should be plenty up.
Cool. I think the other thing that I appreciate what you did was your levels aren't stupid, right? You can, like, $20, you got PDFs and so on. Your intro levels are solid.
Yeah.
Where you're going to get in there, you don't have to drop an arm and a leg just to get something cool. So if you're interested in it, you can get in at a pretty decent price.
Yeah, I mean, I have had a few people say, "Wow, that's too pricey for me," and I get that, but I don't think a lot of people understand how much art I've already procured for the book. I mean, I don't even know how many pieces I've been buying art for 3 years now. So you're basically, when you look at the thousands of hours I've probably put into working on this project, it's probably going to be around 500 pages, and it's going to be chock full of things that you can use. So you're getting so much for the money, even if the PDF is a little more than what you normally would pay. I promise you're getting a solid book, whether you chip in for the hardcover or you do the PDF.
I'll tell you, man, $20 for the PDF? I mean,
yeah.
For God's sakes, that's not that bad. Now, Granted, somebody out there can't afford it, and it's unfortunate, right? There are Kickstarters out there like, oh, wow, I should get in on that. I'm like, that's stupid right now. I got a wife and 5 kids. I should probably help them go through college. But Dave will give money to, so one of my kids isn't going to eat this week. One of my kids ain't eating this week, but I don't care. I'm going to get a cool book.
This is true. Well, the hardback, I think the standard hardback's going for $65. And again, that's I get it. That's pricey for a book. But when you look at like Jeffrey Talanian's Astonishing Swordsman book, I think it may be similarly priced or maybe even a little more expensive. We're independent publishers or printers, so the print run's not going to be as large as, say, like, Goodman Games when they're doing DCC books. So it's there's not as big a margin there. So I hate it. I wish I could throw this book out for $40, but when you look at everything that's in it and everything we even want to put in it with additional art, it's not feasible. So I hope people can afford it.
Well, it's one of those pieces where if you do it stupid one way or the other, you're too expensive, right? And everybody's like, oh, it wasn't worth it, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I think you're in a good sweet spot. It's unfortunate for some people who can't get in, and maybe it's a piece like, because the damn thing's going to get published, you can buy it later. And
that's true.
The other thing that happens here is that you're setting yourself up so that you're not going to be every penny. You're like, oh my God, I've already lost money, right?
Yeah.
So you hear those stories of the Kickstarters that went in and, well, nobody got paid. Oh, I couldn't pay this right. I couldn't do that. I don't
want to go in that book.
No, you don't. You do not want to be. You do not want.
I enjoy going to conventions. I enjoy my friends. I don't want to have the book I don't want to be clubbed in the back of the head with my own book.
Yeah, you don't want to end up on Tenkar's list, right? along with
I do not.
Along with Far West, you don't want to be that guy.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't.
All right, Sean, we good, man?
Yeah, let's do die roll. The die roll. 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to share with our BSers, Dave. I don't know, and you can share if you've got any off the top of your head. So I jotted a few based on what's going on. So the first one, which is not episode related, is the Adventure Tactics Damian's Tower, coming to Kickstarter Q2 2019. It's an encounter-based, campaign-driven deck builder with 5 different classes and over 700 cards.
Wow.
Jesus.
Somebody brought that to our attention on Twitter, and fairly impressed by some of the looks of that. So there's a link in the show notes to the website that will show you like the cards and the artwork and even some play videos.
Sweet.
Yeah. And then, of course, to coincide with the topic of the episode, we have Aces and Eights by Kenzer and Company for folks that aren't familiar with Wild West RPGs that are out there. There's Savage Worlds, Deadlands, which has got a little bit of Weird West to it. The classic Boot Hill 3rd edition you can get on drive-thru. It actually says from Wizards of the Coast, a.k.a. TSR. Dave will put a link to your Kickstarter for Dark Trails. Everybody go out there and check it out. It's already funded, and it's already like half-baked, right, Dave? You got everything like done, right?
No, Dave's totally baked, man.
Oh, Dave's totally baked. Got it.
You mean where the
Fully
project
baked.
stands, or
Yeah.
From a writing perspective.
Yes,
rough
Dave,
draft.
not your mental state.
jackass? The rough draft is done. It's just going to be I'm going to go through it a couple of passes and try and polish it up and tighten it here and there, because there were the Magic section and the bestiary section. There was a lot of freelance help that I got from some cool people. John Hook, you guys may or may not know that name. He's done a lot of Goodman Games, Cthulhu, and some of the DCC adventures. Bob Brinkman, Brandon Garinger. So there's a lot of people there. So I'm going to need to make sure that it's all cohesive and kind of falls under the umbrella of the Dark Trails. So.
Nice. Great art.
Thanks,
Oh, yeah.
man.
Jesus, it looks good.
Yeah.
And that's just going to get better. I mean, there's going to be, probably the majority of the money that it does make will be put into art by the same people that I've already been using, but also I'm looking at, for starters, San Julian's doing the painted cover. So that's, for those of you who know who he is, he's a badass.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, there's tons of Western books out there, but Louis
L'Amour.
Yeah, he's like, that guy's, I don't know how many books he has out.
No, he was a machine. I worked bookstores through college, and that guy cranked out more, basically, men's fantasy Western books than anybody else I can think of offhand. There's a ton of stuff out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more than just Louis stuff, but if you need some Western inspiration, then you got all the movies.
Well, check out the, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Dark Trails group on Facebook. I'm pretty sure that list has been posted, and it's a very, very nice list of movies. Check that out if you're looking for some inspiration and you just want to watch a flick, as opposed to delving into a book. It's out there. Just look for Dark Trails RPG on Facebook.
Got it. Sweet.
All right.
Cool.
And
Well,
I will be, I don't know when this is going to air, but I'll be in North Texas in a couple of weeks running Dark Trails. I may do some off-the-book stuff, so if you're at North Texas, come by and say, hey, I'll have some swag, bookmarks, buttons, things like that to make you smile.
Where else do they find more of the Dave? If they wanted to.
You can find Dark Trails on, I want to say PP. MeWe, is that what it is? Or Mayway?
MeWe.
Yeah, MeWe. We're on MeWe, Dark Trails RPG. Twitter, which is an alien organism. I don't know how to, but I've got a buddy who's handling the Twitter account for that, because hashtags break me out in hives. And we're on Instagram as well. So, and there's a website, www.darktrailsrpg.com. I guess that's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Man. Whatever
you
you
want
want
me to list my phone number, or?
Well, that's up to you, but I don't know
I'm
if you'll
not giving
ever.
that out.
I mean,
Give your social security number, your mother's maiden name. I got a couple documents I need to run. Very cool. All right, I think
All
we're
right.
good, man.
Sweet.
Let's let Dave get the hell out of here.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I love you both.
Thank you,
Thanks,
man.
Dave.
Good having you.
So, Brett, what are we talking about next week?
I can't remember. We're going to talk about it before I remember David. Hindrances. That's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about hindrances, flaws, and that type of thing. We've hashed that out a little bit before. Kojo gave us some more to think about, and so did a couple of the listeners. So we're going to come back at it.
All right. Well, excellent. I think that wraps it up for this week, if I'm not mistaken. Brett, are you good?
I am good, sir.
All right. Well, then, in this case, as always, I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Graham Minert, Corey Wynn, Andy Hall, Hawk Sparrow, Larry Hout, Mark Tasaka, Pure Mongrel, Chris Steele, Ron Bishop, Thomas Hook, Wayne Humphrey, Craig, Brandon Barnes, Laramie Wall, Dan LaValle, Jason Hobbs, Sky, Roger Braslett, John Hammersley, Old School DM, Perry Basor, Michael Dinos, Jim Fitzpatrick, Christopher Gray, Bruce Cunnington, John Coward, God blast it all, John Kayward, John Kayward, Corey Gonzalez, Eileen Barnes, Robert Nemeth, Niall Diamond, Angus, Howard Bishop, Stefan Dragonspawn, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Salzweedle, Trevor Davis, The Closet Gamer, Jeff Goad, Aaron Coleman, Ray Otis, C.W. Mellencamp, Craig Huber, Rich Wishan, Chad Gleeman, Finolf, Mirko Froelich, Lord Tentacle, Joe Swick, Curtis Takahashi, Josh Wallace, Kevin Lovecraft, Andy Olson, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, and Jeff Seifert. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.